Anyway, this double listening is a practice, right? You just start to cultivate. And I think that God is speaking more than we listen. And we start to listen more, we start to hear more. Maybe a promo here. I have a book coming out called Missional Imagination. Pastor Dale's read it. It's actually coming out May 20th, I think, But it talks about this double listening and how to develop imagination, because everybody has an imagination. And imagination, they can test, this Torrance test. And they find that kids have it going into kindergarten. It increases till about 3rd to 5th grade, and it starts declining. Wow. Interesting. And there's several factors behind it. One of the factors is that they're taught in school to get one right answer. And once you get the one right answer, go to the next problem. So in innovation world, once you get the one right answer, find 10 to 20 more. Right? So don't stop at one. Like find 10 to 20 more answers for that. Because usually your first crack at it isn't your best. So just developing the practice of you've got an issue, a concern. It could be family, it could be church, whatever. And instead of like trying to find the right answer, list 10 to 20 of them. And if you can only get to like 10, you could get somebody to help you. So this might be an aside, but let's try a little experiment. What are some similarities between a cat and a refrigerator? I know we have some cat people here. They both purr, so that's number one. Okay, what else? So we have one. We have at least 9 more. Similarities between a cat and a refrigerator. A cat and a fridge. Come on, man, you got to help me out.
Yeah, something moldy in the refrigerator.
What was that?
Instead if it's moldy.
Oh, okay, I like that. Yeah, both have fur if you get something moldy. Okay, that's good. I like that. Okay, yeah, both are a good place to put milk. Okay, yeah, there you go. That's number 3. Okay, what else? I mean, come on. You got to. They have feet. Yeah, they all have feet, right? They both have 4 feet. Okay, they both need water and food. Okay, good. That's 5. Cat and a refrigerator. So we have 5. We need 5 more.
They both call you there.
Sorry.
Cat says meow, and the refrigerator says, come and get your food.
Okay, yeah, both like have a lure. And you could say this, both like to be inside the kitchen. Both like to be in the kitchen, okay? So we have 6. What else? There's some obvious ones we haven't gotten to yet. Yeah, okay, that's 7. Both are a bit cold. Both can be a bit cold, Like you never really own a cat. The cat allows you to care for it, but they're kind of a bit like stand. Okay, we get 7. What's number 8?
They both have an owner.
Both have an owner. Okay, yeah, very good. That's number 9.
You're not really the owner.
You pretend you are.
They both run.
They both run. Okay, yeah, number 10. So we got 10. If we had longer, we could keep ideating. And what happens is you realize after a while, you do this with other things too. Like you got a problem with your child or your school or your academics or your ministry. Don't just try to lock in on one. Get like 10 to 20. Like, think about this. Do they both come in different sizes?
Yes.
Do they come in different colors? Do they both have a tail?
I got this. Yeah.
The back end they got that little cord, call it a tail. So all I'm saying is like imagination gets stirred on this lateral thinking, right? And a missional imagination is we sense the same thing as others, but we envision alternate possibilities to reveal the kingdom of heaven on earth. And one of the practices is, so you sense the same thing. So you're saying, okay, you work in a nursing home.
Yes.
Okay. So then you start thinking of 10 to 20 ways that you can reveal the kingdom of heaven there, right? Instead of bringing them to church, how can you reveal the kingdom of heaven there? And you were talking about like singing with some people, sharing So you just apply that, and start saying, okay, what are some of the areas? Think of those bridges of God. Remember the bridges of God that God's given you, these social networks? how are ways we can reveal the kingdom of heaven in that bridge? And then you start to ideate and get 10 to 20 ideas, and then pick one and start to work with it. Okay. So that was a little aside. That was no extra charge. Okay. So let's talk about, somebody brought this out, I'm trying to remember who it was, about various cultural contexts. So cultural differences. So let's talk about that a little bit, because these cultural differences can actually provide different starting points for us to engage people in faith conversations. And this is called pluralism. Pluralism is the existence of different religious faiths in one society. So instead of everybody, in a previous generation, evangelism was more like bringing somebody back to a faith they once had or a faith of their parents. But now in the current 21st century, you engage people of totally different faith systems altogether, right? So this is like a pluralist society, and the U.S. continues to increasingly become more pluralist. So you're more likely to engage somebody of a different faith system. We've mentioned several, like in some of our role plays, and we're going to talk about how do you start conversations with people in these different faith systems that are very different than yours. And if we're not careful, we can actually do some harm. Because what happens is we put a straitjacket upon us without knowing it, and we think the gospel is one thing, that it deals with people's guilt. And the meaning of the death, resurrection, ascension of Christ, we boil this down to our guilt is removed, and now we have just standing before God. So Jesus provides justice. Okay, and there's some biblical precedent for that, but it's not the only way that Jesus describes salvation, particularly when people don't experience guilt. Okay, so what we're going to talk about, there are actually three major ways that anthropologists have described in history that the effect of sin can be guilt, but it can also be shame. It can also be fear. Now, we already talked about Genesis 3 and the first conversation God had with humanity. And what did Adam say? Remember, God said, "Hey, where are you?" And how did Adam respond? Sorry?
He said he was hiding because he was afraid.
Afraid. So think of that. Sin brings fear into the world. And there's large groups of people that sin doesn't produce guilt, but it produces fear. And does the gospel address fear? Yeah. So the gospel is the power of God for salvation. In the early church, they had this Christus Victor. Like the meaning of the death, resurrection, and ascension was that Jesus had the power to overcome the devil. And he proved it by dying and raising from the grave, right? So that was the meaning of salvation for that group of people. And in 20th century society, we kind of pushed that away and said, well, the real meaning of the gospel is that your sins separate you from God because of your guilt, and Jesus comes like a bridge and removes that guilt, and therefore we have just standing before God. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that for a certain group of people, that makes sense. For a large group of people, it makes no sense. And if that's all we describe the gospel as, you have just taken a big gospel, made it really tiny, and excluded a lot of people, particularly like on university campuses, or perhaps some of your children or grandchildren that aren't experiencing guilt. They don't experience guilt for their sin. And if the gospel is only about justice, then you've missed a large part of it. So the guilt innocence culture, this is prevalent in the Western world, and we're familiar with this, where the gospel basically means that because of our sin, our guilt separates us from God. The meaning of the death, resurrection, and ascension of Christ is that he paid for our sin so that our guilt is removed, and therefore if we stand in front of God, he's like a judge, slams the gavel, says, not guilty, because Jesus paid for it. Nothing wrong with that. That comes from like Romans, and some of these legal terms, etc. But when I lived in Ghana, West Africa, and described this to them, they said, well, that's interesting, but not really. Because they don't experience guilt. It's not their world. So guilt actually made sense in the Western world and largely drawing from the Apostle Paul and from the book of Romans. But think of this, Jesus never presented the gospel the same way twice, right? He never gave 4 spiritual laws to people, never simply said that the meaning of my future death and resurrection is going to be that your guilt is removed. It is part of it, but it's not only that. So you have societies that are predicated upon shame. Now, shame is interesting because this is the majority of the people of the world. And the reason this is important is that you're going to experience people from other parts of the world that guilt is not in their repertoire, but shame is. Now, so guilt is an inward experience, very individual. Shame is a collective, outward experience. Shame is like a credit card. You can add to it, you can subtract to it based upon what you do. And when somebody's feeling shamed, it's not like they want their internal feeling of guilt to be removed. They need to have their honor restored. Okay, so therefore, the death, resurrection, ascension of Christ is now that your honor has been restored as a member of the family of God again. So the story of the prodigal son. For those who live in a shame world, this makes sense to them as the gospel. In other words, you remember the story, right? The son takes the inheritance and goes off in a far land. What did he bring to the family? Shame. And eventually he's feeding pigs. So for any Jew to be among pigs, what is that? Shame, right? So this understanding of the gospel makes sense to people who are in a shame world. When the son comes back, you know the story, the father embraces him and gives him a ring and a robe. What does that signify? Honor. Honor's been restored as the member of the family again. And therefore, for those in a shame-honor world, that is the gospel to them. Like the death, resurrection, ascension of Christ, is that Christ has now restored my honor, removed my shame. Now, in contemporary North America, this is growing. Shame needs an audience. Social media provides a big audience. So therefore, shame is on the rise in ways that it hasn't been in a previous generation. And for those who are shamed, they're looking for their honor to be restored. And Christ makes sense as one who restores their honor by reintroducing them to be a member of the family of God again. They may not have any guilt. And if you just talk about guilt, they're like, well, who cares? We start talking about shame for those who experience that. Now they understand Christ as the one that restores them and gives them honor again. And then you have, so this shame, particularly in collectivist cultures, this is very different than guilt. Remember I said, guilt is a very individual, internal experience, which makes sense in a very individualistic society. But shame is a more external, collective experience that people have. And therefore, Christ addresses that. And for most of the world, this is the meaning of the resurrection of Christ, that your honor has been restored. Okay. Now, and then you get fear-power worlds. Now, before I go further, remember Genesis 3, after the fear conversation, remember I said before, in Genesis 2, Adam and Eve were naked and had no shame. That word comes out. And then Genesis 3, they put leaves to cover their shame. So the point is that shame enters the world through sin. So one of the effects of sin is shame, and whole cultures are predicated upon that. So like classically, Japan, Korea, a lot of Asian countries, a lot of India, they're collectively like shame cultures, not fear or guilt cultures. Okay? And the reason it's important to us is that these people are coming to North America. And they're bringing that kind of understanding. So the gospel for them is not the way we've thought of it, that he's going to remove your guilt. They don't care, but that he restores your honor. So then you get this one, fear-power cultures. So this is a lot of like, say, Africa, Latin America, Native America. We had a 10-year partnership with one reservation. And this is a lot of the world that they live in, that they live in fear of like the spirit world. They live in fear of ancestors. They live in fear. And therefore, what Christ provides is not removing guilt or shame, But the power of God. Remember that promise that God made in Genesis 1, where he says, no, Genesis 3, the seed of the woman is going to crush the head of the devil. So in the fear of power culture, they understand that. That's what Jesus was. He was the seed of the woman that came to crush the power of the devil, and he proved it by his resurrection. So therefore, this whole fear kind of power is a starting place where they are. And remember, we're trying to catch up on the conversation that God is having with people. And it turns out there's different conversations. You know, in a previous generation, we kind of boiled the gospel down to removing guilt. And that was okay for some people. But now in a pluralist society, we realize God is having different conversations with people. So instead of trying to wipe out the conversation God is having, let's listen to it and build upon that. And that's where the fear, power, the shame, honor help to expand our understanding of what the gospel means and not simply removing guilt. Okay, we tracking so far? Okay. So anthropologists have known this since like early 1960s. Eugene Nida talked about these different fear, power, honor, shame, guilt, justice. But then you get something like this. Okay. Purple-haired girl. I don't know. Why we? I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Let's not look this way. Let's look. So this is somebody you're going to be more familiar with if you go to Shippensburg University, right? It's not a state college. Thank you. Okay, Shippensburg University. You go there when you meet people. If you talk about the gospel as the one who removes your guilt, they'll be like, yeah, I've heard that. It's not me. It may be shame. It may be fear. You know, like particularly in the recovery community, right? People want to know about a God who gives them the power to overcome their addiction, right? And some have said about 30% of the U.S. there's some addictive behavior. If you add to the classic, you know, like alcohol, drugs, sex, etc., and then you add in there video gaming, food addictions, you know, just a long list of stuff. So some estimate about 30% of the American population have some addiction. They want to know a gospel that gives them the power to break that addictive behavior that they don't have on their own. And Christ becomes that. But then you get in Shippensburg University and other universities that I've visited, they're not experiencing any of those three. In other words, due to their sin, they're not feeling guilty, they're not feeling shamed, and they're not being fearful, right? It's just not their world. They're simply indifferent. Now, there's various reasons behind this, and if you have some questions, we can talk about it. But this is not only North America, but when I was in China about a year ago and talking with these Chinese underground church pastors and missionaries, they said this is what we're finding in Chinese universities all over China. This is 1.3 billion people in the world, you know, and they're realizing people are simply indifferent. So it's not simply North America. There are other places, post like communist blocs, etc. So what's the conversation that God is having with them? Because remember, our argument is that God is conversing with everyone. Now tomorrow at church, I'll show you some research we've done that like fleshes this out a bit more. And we describe this as an emerging worldview. This is a worldview that's emerging, and secularism is part of that. There's a book called Apathyism, and he blames technology as well as affluence is kind of driving this emerging worldview of indifference. If we want to talk more about that, we can. But let's just describe it a little bit. Sometimes people are raised in religious households, or there's been no religious influence for decades. It's not that they're valueless, they're very suspicious of traditional values. This is kind of the postmodern critique. Like, postmoderns are suspicious of any power. And they want to know, the people in power, why are they making the rules to keep themselves in power? So there's just a natural critique of any institution like government, education, and then even church fits into that, right? So they're very tolerant of other philosophies and worldviews, and it's an attitude of non-interference. Now, for those who are indifferent, that's on the far right. This is like a table that kind of summarizes what I just said. That these different worldviews, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me camp on the indifference a little bit, and I'll talk about this more tomorrow. For those who are indifferent, God is having a conversation, and here's what our research and some others have said. What they are longing for, where God is still conversing with them, they're longing for belonging, and they're longing for purpose. Those two. So if that's where the conversation has already started, let's build upon that, right? And let's describe how Christ, the death, resurrection, ascension of Christ, provides belonging into the family of God and gives you purpose that is not simply imminent, not just something that happens here, but it's also transcendent, it's outlasts us, etc. So my point is that if we're going to listen well enough to people to catch up on God's conversation, for a growing number of people, that conversation is indifference. And therefore, the starting point for engaging them is not to convince them that they're guilty or not to convince them that they're shameful or fearful, but to simply describe how Christ provides belonging as part of the family of God and purpose that is much more than just simply going to the next party or having the next fun or whatever. Okay? So here's a summary of these different worldviews. And in the card game, what we're going to do is we're going to try to find out which of these 4 worldviews are operating. And you're going to do this through some storytelling. So what I've tried to do is to combine storytelling and faith sharing together through a card game that educates you on these different worldviews. Okay? You tracking so far? Okay. So take a look, just so we summarize. This justice-guilt worldview, the meaning of sin is that you're separated or you're guilty of sin. And what Christ provides is this payment or this substitute. And therefore, the image of salvation is that God in a courtroom has slammed the gavel down and said, not guilty. Okay? For some people, that makes sense. The second one, the honor-shame, the result of sin is shame. Remember Genesis 3? Shame comes into the world as a result of sin. And what they're looking for is to be restored or to be cleansed. And therefore, the image of Christ is that a relationship has been formed, that there's a cleansing, there's a restoration, like the prodigal son kind of thing. And then the third one, the fear of power, the result of sin is fear, or like a curse or a bondage. Like you remember the curse put upon humanity. And then what Jesus provides is deliverance, so that he breaks the power of sin and removes the fear, so that the image is as the one who provides power, freedom from addiction and sin, etc., through the death, resurrection, ascension of Christ. Now, the indifferent group, the result of sin is indifference. They're simply like, just not interested, like Bashir's used the word apathetic. There's apathy. There's just indifference. They're not like angry or excited, just like, who cares? So what Christ provides is belonging with purpose. And the image, and I want you to listen to this, the image of salvation here is that someone's invited to come home. They're coming home to a family either they once had and lost, or they're coming home to a family they never had before but always longed for. And that's the image of salvation. Instead of the judge slamming the gavel, or the prodigal son being honored again, or the breaking of chains, for those in fear, the image is you're coming home. And you're coming home, and Christ provides belonging and purpose. Okay. Now what we're going to do here in just a few minutes is play a card game, but my point is that these worldviews are in the background, and you don't know what they are until you start to listen to them. There should be a common theme here, right? We're trying to listen to how God's conversation is progressing. Oftentimes what happens is there's 2 worldviews, and one is more dominant. And you don't know it until you're in conversation. So here's a real conversation we had with Alice, and I was talking to Alice and with a group of folks, and she said, well, she went to church as a young girl but hasn't seen the need for it. in a long time. So we started talking about indifference. Like she's indifferent to faith and therefore belonging and purpose. But then she comes out and said, well, yeah, I've been going to Wicca lately to get some help, for some of the issues I'm wrestling with. Now you've moved into the fear power world, right? So we started asking her about her fears and the things that are pushing her to go to Wicca to address things. And she starts to reveal some of the issues she has that are requiring her to go to Wicca to get some power that she doesn't have. So in the end, she eventually comes to church, comes to faith, But think about if we'd started the conversation with guilt, she would have dismissed it. Saying, well, that's what the gospel is. That's not me, right? So our role as evangelists is to catch up on the conversation that God is having with people. And once we do, we keep it moving towards Christ. And these worldviews give us starting points to engage people differently. So we need to listen. And we can learn it. It may sound academic, but it's not. Like we can learn it by playing a card game. And the more you play it, the better you get, right? So that's one reason to do the card game. If you play the game, you enjoy it. The more you enjoy it, the better you get at it. Okay, so oftentimes we do it in groups of 3 because then more people get to play at it. Okay, so I don't know. I mean, 4 is okay. Can we maybe bring a groups, maybe bring another table or something, or maybe they can do it on the back chairs or something like that. You could do that. Yeah, you could go to a room. Okay, so let me show you how the card game works. Okay, yeah, here we go. So why don't you open that box on the table there? You open the box on the table. Again, don't put money down. But open the box and then take the cards out. There's some directions in there too, if you need it. Take the cards out. And then there should be 4 different colors. So put the cards down in those 4 colors. Okay, so there's a pile of red, there's a pile of green, there's a pile of yellow, and there's a pile of blue. Okay, so put the 4 cards down on the table. Okay, so every person takes 1 card of each color. Okay? Take a card of each color. So you're going to have 4 cards in your hand. So that you keep them in the color. The blank one means it's a wild card. You can make up anything. So if you want the blank, you're good. It's a wild card. Okay. Everybody have a card, 1 of each color. Okay, you've got. So put them in your hand so nobody can see them. Part of it is like in storytelling, you kind of lay them down one at a time and don't let people. There's a little surprise element in there. Everybody's good. Okay. So you have a card of each color. Now here's what happens. You're going to tell a story of you meeting this person. See the green card? Tell a story of you meeting this person. Yeah, and as you tell that, you lay that card down. And then you describe the place that you met them. That's the yellow card, and you lay it down as you describe it. And then the red card is, this is the problem that they talk to you about, the issue in conversation. And then the blue card, you're going to describe the story, the third one down. Okay? You're going to describe that story that addresses that problem that they're wrestling with. And I'll give you an example in just a minute. Now, here's the trick. Take a look at your blue and red cards. At the bottom of them, there's one of those 4 worldviews listed there. You have to make sure they match, because that's our whole point here, right? You don't want to share like a guilt justice presentation for somebody who's in fear power. So make sure that the 2 match. So those do match. So look at your cards, the red and the blue, the bottom. They do not match. So now what you do is if they don't match, take turns, and you go into the pile, and you can switch out either the blue or the red so that they match. So make sure, let me see your cards.
Priority as long as they have the same two.
Same thing, yeah.
I need a blue pair.
Yep, you're good. Then you go through the red and the blue and pick ones that do match. So this is one reason we have groups of 3, so it's easier to get the cards to work. Okay, let me see what you got.
Your blue one should look the same at the bottom.
Gonna take a look.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
The blue at the bottom, the blue and the red. Yep, beautiful. You good to go? Okay. Now, make sure nobody sees your cards. It's part of the secret. You have the surprise element, you know. No, you're good. Okay, let me see, ma'am. You're good to go. Yeah, now put your cards so nobody can see it. Part of the storytelling is that there's surprise.
Cards up and put them like this, like you're playing.
Let me see. Yeah, it's a wild card. You can make it up. Anything you want. You can do that too. You can switch out any card you want. If you want a fisherman, you can do it. So, okay, let's get a blue.
Here's an indifferent red.
Okay, so therefore that, and go with that. Now you got it.
Got it.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, because I couldn't find.
So everybody's cool? The cards, the red and the blue match. Okay, everybody here cool? Red and blue match, red and blue match. Okay, let me give an example. Now these are like nano stories, meaning they're small. So don't go on too long. So I'd say like 2 to 3 minutes most. And what will happen is one person will tell the story, everybody listens, and then after they tell the story, you clap for them, and then they lay the cards down. At the end, once everybody's going around, you take 3 cards and give it to the best story, and 1 card to the second best story. Whoever has the most cards is the winner of that round, and I'll tell you what our next step will be. Are you hear me?
Card to the best story, 1 card to the.
Second best. And whoever has the most cards receiving is the winner of that round. Okay. Are y'all good? You're not good? Okay. So what'll happen is we'll start here.
Or whatever.
She'll tell the story. You listen to it. When she finishes, clap for her. And then you tell the story. When you finish, clap for her. Once everybody's going around, you're going to vote. Taking 3 cards in your hand, give it to the best story, 1 card to the second best. Whoever has the most cards will win. Okay, any questions here? Let me give an example before you go. All right, y'all, cards match?
Cards match.
Okay, cards are matching? Cards are matching? Okay, let me pick up some cards here. Okay, so I pick up the cards. Okay, this will be interesting.
You match.
Sorry, let me see. Yeah, they match. Thank you. Okay, this is one of the best days of the year, man. I mean, you've got Easter, and you've got Christmas, and you've got Thanksgiving, and you've got Arbor Day, and you've got Yard Sale Day. It was the community yard sale. So that's my yard sale, garage sale card. I'm at a garage sale here, and out of the corner of my eye, I see this guy over there that's looking at some stuff that I'm interested in, but he's the guy I recognize as my neighbor that would kind of open his blinds a little bit, and he's kind of like the creepy neighbor. The creepy neighbor, man. He's right at this garage sale. He's a bit nosy, and I'm not feeling as great about it. So I go over to him and say, "Hey, man, how you doing? I've seen you like peeking around the blinds and whatnot." And we start talking about this this item that he wants to buy, but he says, "I just don't have enough money for it." I'm feeling a little bit better because I wanted it, But then he goes on to describe, he said, "Yeah, I'm kind of feel like I get stuck in this poverty trap." So stuck in a poverty cycle. Because no matter how much I try to get ahead, I keep paying bills, and maybe I'm just like cursed. Because I'm like stuck, And I said to him, "Yeah, I can understand that." Because I've had times, where I've had this like fear of not having, there's more month left than money, right? So I've had that fear before. And I found Jesus to help me, but I know a story of a guy that had a lot bigger fears than you did. Would you want to hear about it? He said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "Well, there was this guy that Jesus encountered," and this is demoniac, where he had all these demons inside of him, and he wasn't like himself. And people left him, and he was kind of creepy. You may know somebody like that. When Jesus came to him, Jesus cast out that fear and cast out the demons inside of him that went into the lake and they were drowned. And then he had his right mind about him. And Jesus said, come follow me, right? And his life was transformed. Would you be interested to hear more about that, having a transformed life? He said, well, I'll tell you what, man, I'm at a bad spot right now. I'd actually be more interested. Can I come to your house tomorrow? I said, bro, we're on. Let's go. And that's my story.
Yeah, I have the same one.
So the name of the story is no more peeking out of the blinds, he just comes over.
Yeah, there you go. That's the moral of the story. Yeah, okay, very good. Okay, now you didn't clap for my story, so let's hear some love here. A little bit of love. Okay, thank you. Yes, concerns.
That sounds like a criminal minds.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. All right.
You've had that experience.
You can use any order you want, but usually it's either the place or the person, usually, and then the problem, and then the presentation. Now think of this. On storytelling, usually the rule is you don't say it, you portray it. So I didn't just say that he's a creepy guy. I said he's the guy that peeked through the curtain. You describe it. So you don't say it, portray it, right? And the other thing is you try to keep a little surprise element so you don't lay your cards down until one at a time. You throw them down so that people don't know how this thing's going to end. Because for any good story, like you have some tension in it. Once the tension is removed, the story is removed, right? So I teach storytelling at seminary, and what I tell people, oftentimes the story has ended, but the storyteller is not. Now that once you remove the tension, finish. You're done. Don't keep talking, Try it out, and I'm going to walk around and just kind of hear some of these stories. And maybe if you all want to go to like 3-3, is that cool? Okay. Is that better? Okay. Yeah, man, I hear you. I'll put it back there. Recognize that every time you're going to share your faith, it's with a different kind of person, different place, different issues. So there's a different presentation. Now, these are the experts. Can we clap for them? So let me see what happened. I guess, David, you're going to jump in, man, because it looks like Jen is not here. So David, let's welcome David to the team. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Is every group represented? So that's 2. Why don't you grab a chair? Here you go. This will work. Every group's represented. Okay. Now, so these are the experts because they were the ones that won the last round. And what that means is they have a bit of experience. Okay. They played 3 games, right? Well, the proverb that says, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So even though you don't feel like a king, you've got one eye. In other words, you've won. So what we're going to do is we're going to give them the blue deck right here. Okay? And you're going to look at this together. What's going to happen is y'all are going to start a story. So take the deck out, wherever it is, and then pick one of the green cards, and you all pick a yellow card, and then you all pick a red card. Okay? Pick a red card. Now, what's going to happen is this. Now, you're going to have to listen really well. Yeah, you can get in close, pretend like you like each other.
Here, David.
Get a little cuddly, yeah.
Put David in the middle. Put David in the middle.
David's like, how'd that happen, man? Okay, so what's going to happen is, okay, Eric, y'all have a card here? You have a green one? Just pick one. And you're going to pick, okay, because what's going to happen is, y'all going to start a story by telling us about a person. Now remember, in storytelling, you portray it, you don't say it. So you don't tell us it's a creepy neighbor, describe them. Or whatever person you pick. And then you're all going to pick a yellow card, and then you're going to pick up where they started and keep that story moving. You feeling me? Okay. And now, you have to listen really well because they're going to start a story. You're going to pick the red, the problem. Yeah. Now pick a red, one that you like, that you think, but don't tell these guys. And don't show it to them. Okay, so you got the green? You got one? Okay, don't show it yet. Very good, thank you. The yellow, the red. Now you can be observers here, okay? So what's going to, she's cool. So what's going to happen is, Now, you all have to listen because they're telling a story of a person, a place, and a problem, but they're not going to show you which of the worldviews it is. You're going to have to talk among yourselves. Which of these worldviews is it? And then you're going to give the presentation like one at a time. You're going to add on to each other. Okay? So like you start here, and then you hand it to her, and then you just save a little bit for her. Okay? So this takes it one step further. In other words, you don't see the worldview, but you're going to have to interpret it by hearing it. And this is kind of moving you to like the real world, right?
Okay, I didn't win. Let's go back.
No, you're good. You're good. Okay, do y'all have it? Yeah. Okay, let me see. Okay, very good. So don't show them. Okay, ready? You ready? You ready? Okay, so now use your best storytelling style. Like try to make it a bit fun, try to portray it. Okay. All right, let's go. Let's listen to the story over here starting. Eric, give it a go. Oh, yeah, I need the mic. Where's the mic? It's right in front of him. Yeah, right. Look
I
next
am on my way to my favorite place I like to go to.
Yeah.
I'm walking through the woods. I have my thing across my shoulder. I got my little bag,
Yeah.
my box, and I get to my favorite spot, and I sit on my rock, and I get my rod together, and I put my favorite lure on, and I cast it way out there, and I am just all in heaven.
Yes.
And after I left that favorite spot, I went to my other favorite spot because, I had kind of fallen in the creek and gotten into mud, and my clothes were dirty and muddy, and so I had to go to my favorite spot because I like people, and one of my favorite spots where I like to meet people is at the laundromat. And so there, I just I washed my clothes, and while I was at the laundromat,
Here we go.
I just can't believe it. That mud was so stained on there, and I couldn't find any detergent, and I couldn't find any Clorox or anything, and I just, nothing was going right that day. Are you sure your hook didn't get caught in the tree too? And I mean, just nothing went right that day, and I just felt like everything was against me. I just wanted to say, Satan, get behind me. Not today, Satan. I just couldn't take it.
Okay. Okay. So why don't you read that card? Tell them how you felt.
I just felt like I was just cursed that day. Like the day just couldn't get any worse.
Okay, did y'all hear it? Why don't you
I
reset
said-
it? Yep.
I said I just felt like I was cursed that day. I just couldn't shake anything. I was just so afraid that I just couldn't get out of it, and that the next tomorrow was going to be worse.
Okay.
That if I didn't have any luck at all, it would be bad luck.
Right on.
All right, so we
What's-
get a.
Watch you talk about each other. You're in agreement? Okay. Okay, so, yeah, so you pick one that you all agree on.
We have several fears that we need to, is there any other fear?
I think this one's cool.
Okay, so it's
She should like
these
one.
two that we need to decide which one will work best, Bartimaeus or the demoniac with the pigs.
What do you guys think?
This is our professional team at work here, this professional consultants. Okay. So you got that one? Okay. So why don't you start over here and you start responding to this person, how maybe hand the mic there, Dale, and then you're making a response to this person.
So I'm sorry to hear that you were having such a bad day. It sounds like it started out really great and just kind of went downhill from there. And that's just kind of the way things go sometimes. But, that's life. But, there are other things that come into play.
Just
Yeah.
you're talking to that person. You're talking to him. Keep it going.
So I agree. I'm sorry you had a bad day. I think I might have a solution to some of your problems. Something that I could probably introduce you to.
Great.
They're really dragging it out, man.
Okay, well, thank you. I think I'm going to save that for you guys. Well, I'm not exactly sure. I heard the first two. Candy wasn't as clear, but I'm really sorry, Candy. That it happened that way, and you started out really awesome, and you were probably fishing and doing all that good stuff, right, Dale? So there is, there's Jesus does. What did you say, Candy? I was trying to look at the cards.
Okay, maybe pass the card on. Pass it on. There you go. Yeah, this is the key is to listen well.
I'm sorry you had a bad day.
Okay, there's a lot of empathy. A lot of empathy. Okay, bring us home here. Help us out.
Okay. I used to go through life thinking if I had any luck at all, it was going to be bad luck. And then something changed that. It's kind of like what you were just talking about. And it made me, I don't look at life half empty anymore. I look at life 3/4 full. And it just made me, what you were telling me reminded me of a story of a man, a blind beggar, that I read the story in the Bible. And every day, every time the waters would stir, if you jumped in the water, you could be healed from all the ugly, right? And so for over 30 years, he sat there and couldn't get in the water in time until he met Jesus. And Jesus said, just be healed. And all that happened for me personally, and my bad luck turned into a righteous, right relationship that I can give him my bad days and he helps me through them, but he helps me see into days to make them better for myself. And I'd love to introduce you to my Jesus. He's a good God.
Okay.
Don't have to be bad, baby.
All right. How did she respond? How did she respond to the story?
I'm sorry.
How did the story end? Okay.
No, it doesn't. And actually, today can be the start of the good stuff. It's really easy to find a righteous relationship with Christ. I can introduce you to him right now.
Okay, there you go.
So at that point, I would just naturally wrap and embrace into you, hold your hand, and talk to you more about who Jesus is to me, and invite you to ask him into your life.
All right, let's thank him. Yeah. Very good, very good. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about the card game. What are some things you learned? What did you feel? What did you think? Yes, Dale?
The cards make it easy for me to forget about my story.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, that God sort of relate
Yeah.
to my story, what they're going through.
Yeah. Now, our stories aren't inconsequential. They're consequential as they connect to God's story, right? So our stories connect to a much bigger story, right? So therefore, our individual ones are important as they connect to God's bigger story. Yeah, very good. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Okay, anybody else?
Here, we'll pass this around.
It helps to relate stories back to stories in the Bible.
Yeah.
Right? Like how you could use stories or books in the Bible to relate to real people. And how they think or feel.
So were you able to match the worldviews with the problems that are working there? And there's these 4 different kind of starting points. Was that something? It sounds like y'all did it, and you came to consensus pretty quick, right? Which is really good. So tell me a little bit more. Is this something that could help you, like, do this double listening, listen to the person, listen to the Holy Spirit, and find a starting point to engage them in meaningful discussion? Okay?
In the group I was in, all 3 of us said, this really helps.
Yeah.
The practice makes it.
By the third time, it was a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Felt like.
So some person said to me, it's like batting practice. I'm not sure any baseball players here, but like, okay. So before you get in front of a pitcher who's going to throw 100 miles an hour at you, it's good to go to the batting cage and swing it a few times, right? Before it's live. So, and that's what's happening here. Before you go live with somebody at your work or wherever, try it a few times with some scenarios, and then you feel much more equipped to swing that bat, to be able to step up and say, yeah, I understand that situation. And you realize, oh, this is a fear-power thing, or this is a honor-shame. That's a different starting point. Okay. How about somebody who, say, is like a Muslim? Hey, there you go. So that's the starting point, right? So, like, I think somebody said it up here. Hey, I didn't hear your story because I was reading the card, you know. Well, that's the point of this game, is that you have to not look at your prepared speech or whatever, but listen to that person. Like, God's working there. Listen to that. And when you find that, that gives you the information. Okay, good, good. Suppose somebody's a Muslim and you're talking with somebody. Where would you start? Which of these worldviews do you think would be like a starting point? Or, okay, that's one starting point, yeah.
They are that's an honor-based
Could be, and you don't know. Oftentimes it's a fear-power worldview. You know, there's the fear of Allah, and there's the fear that you've gained enough merit, etc. And you'd explore that. Now, that'd be a starting point to listen, but they may bring up honor. You know, like there's this honor, particularly somebody in their family that's doing something. You know, there's this, shame killing, honor killing kind of thing. But you have at least some starting points to think about. If somebody is like Buddhist or Hindu, they're more likely in the shame-honor world. Interestingly enough, the whole guilt justice thing is on the decrease. Like, I don't often find it. At times I do. But it's more like the indifference is what's like kind of rising up. And yes.
About dealing with Muslims, Hindu, Buddhists. I don't know what the other one is.
Wiccan.
I don't know who Wiccans.
It's like witchcraft.
Oh,
or, yeah.
okay. Coming from a country that is half Muslim, half Christian,
Yeah.
I can relate to
Yeah.
that. So dealing with Muslims as a Christian is kind of complex, actually.
Oh, yeah.
So you have, most of the time, you have to know the word.
Yeah.
You can't just bat into a Muslim without knowing the word.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Well, let's keep in mind that most Muslims are nominal.
Yes.
So the majority are very nominal and Muslim because they were born in a Muslim family, come from a Muslim area, etc. So I wouldn't be intimidated to talk to your Muslim coworker because oftentimes, like they're very nominal.
Yeah, and then again, the thing that boils down to all these religions is still love.
Yeah.
And the way to approach them is telling them about the love of God and the love of how God sent his son to die for sin. Because if you look at it, in the Muslim, Muhammad did not die and rise.
Right.
In the Hindu and the Buddhism, there's not a place where they died and they rose from the dead.
Yeah.
So those are vital points because I've been to the Muslim.
Right.
I've been a Christian. I've been a Christian, so I can relate to all these things. So the only thing that will help us as a Christians is Jesus dying on the cross.
Yeah, no, that's the key here.
That's the key.
And what we're trying to say is what's the significance of that? Like, what's the significance of the death, resurrection, and ascension of Christ? For 20th century, we assumed it was just that their guilt is removed, and now they have just standing before God. But for Muslims, that doesn't really mean anything to them.
Yes, exactly.
So for a lot of Muslims, there's this fear of Allah, and then Christ becomes the power of God, demonstrated through the death, the resurrection, ascension. For Hindus and Buddhists, there's no real one God out there.
Yeah.
There's various gods around. So the whole issue often is the shame and how do you restore somebody's honor. And Christ does that, like the prodigal son kind of story. And but oftentimes, like at Shippensburg University, you'll find people who are indifferent.
Yes.
Now, you won't know until you listen. Like you might, and therefore it's helpful to know these four worldviews so you're able to adapt based upon the person that you're engaging, right? Wow. That is awesome. Yeah, can we thank our team? Yeah, thank you. That was awesome, man. That's the way to end it. If you can put these back in the box there. Okay, very good. If you can put the cards maybe back in the box, maybe they are. Okay, yeah, very good.